I'm Sean Fennessy.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about not accepting a life we do not deserve. Today on the show, we are talking about 3 new movies, Ty West's 3rd installment in the MaXXXine Minx saga. MaXXXine, the weekend's box office behemoth. Despicable Me 4. Did you see this movie?
No, because you took it off the spreadsheet and I was traveling.
Incredible.
So you went by yourself?
I'm going to tell you about Despicable Me 4.
No,
I went by myself.
You know what
yes.
I was actually thinking? Like, I don't think that you should tell me. And then I was going to go see it tomorrow. And then I was going to do a recap for the live show.
Oh my God. Great idea.
I think that's okay. So
excellent.
We'll talk about box office, but I'll prepare myself.
And then, of course, Netflix's Beverly Hills Cop: Axel F. Lathan will join us to talk about the new Eddie Murphy Lega sequel. But first, over the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
We got the trailer for F1.
We sure did.
Now, I just want to start by saying F1 is a new film from Apple Original Films starring Brad Pitt about F1 racers. The movie was originally called Apex, and I'm really mad it's not called Apex anymore. Everything else about this, I'm incredibly excited about.
It looks so sick. I'm so ready. Here, order of events. My husband starts watching it in the same room, and I sprint over. And I was like, is that the F1 trailer? And then he starts it over again for me. We sit there. We're just both cheering. I say out loud, Tom Cruise must be really pissed. And then I notice that Zach is watching it, has pulled it up from your Twitter. So then I was like, oh, good. And Sean's excited too. So we have something to look forward to.
I'm so pumped. Coming out in June 2025.
I'm so ready.
Reportedly a very expensive film. Do not care about that.
It has been a long time in the making.
Yes. How did you feel about the We Will Rock You song usage in the trailer?
Just great. I don't care.
So I feel similarly. I was like, you know what? Good choice. Even though this
old,
is overused, but I was like, I'm old now.
I don't give a fuck.
We're using Queen songs. It's fine. You know, it sounds great loud in the movie theater.
Remember when we watched
Queen.
the Super Bowl together and Usher came out and we were all like, yeah, remember this in the club?
God.
You know, we're old. It's fine. The Super Bowl is halftime shows for us. This is for us. Sign me up.
One of our producers, Ronick, is here, and he was just telling us about a music festival that he's going to. He named 5 acts, never heard of any of them. I have no idea what he's doing in this city, what music he's listening to.
Yeah.
God bless him. Shout out Ronick. I'm very happy about Queen, and I'm very happy about F1.
Yeah.
This movie is going to be very... for people who know anything about F1, they're going to be really annoying about it.
So I
don't know anything about F1.
I'd like to pledge right here, right now in front of you,
in
front of everyone listening and watching, I will not learn anything about F1 before this movie. And if you know about F1 and you want to tell me about it, I will not listen. And I'm going to have...
This is a rare moment.
I'm going to have...
where I don't know anything either.
I'm going to have a Top Gun level knowledge of F1 going into F1, which is what I learned, what I have learned from the films. There are people in my life, people I love, who know more.
So you've never watched Drive to Survive?
No.
Neither have I. I've never watched 1 minute of Drive to Survive.
Started
a huge Netflix series.
1 week after Knox was born.
Okay.
And that's what he would, kind of watch his own out at his own time. And he got through all 5 seasons. And I said, I won't be catching up. I also have enough elite European sports, on my docket. I got to be watching the tennis.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it.
How do you feel about the liberal wave flowing over the politics of Western Europe right now?
Did you see Hugh Grant's, my favorite dad Twitter's reaction to France on Sunday?
Did not.
He just posted the Marseillaise scene from Casablanca with a French flag and then a heart flag. And I was like, wow, my perfect man still does exist.
Oh, interesting.
And it's Hugh Grant. It's the best Twitter account on earth.
Did he celebrate the new prime minister as well?
No, that he didn't follow up. Nor did I, honestly. I watched some reaction videos and then I was like, well, it seems like this is sort of a quagmire still. It's not worst case outcome, but now they're deadlocked. And I do not have the energy to learn how European governments work.
Do you think the United States of America would be in a better position if we allowed England to readopt us as a colonized nation?
They had a good weekend.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 1-2 of the election, and I watched the PKs. Shout out to all of them.
Yeah, heartbreaking loss for Switzerland.
I did
Christ.
think of you, but I don't really acknowledge your quote unquote allegiance to Switzerland.
There's no quotes around it.
Yeah,
it's factual.
My
grandfather was born in the country of Switzerland. What? Period.
You don't have a passport.
But you only got 1 generation from Switzerland. It's a very difficult passport to acquire. Nevertheless, more news that came down the pipe over the weekend. The Paramount Skydance deal actually happened.
Okay.
It's confirmed.
This is
Skydance is acquiring Paramount.
This broke Sunday afternoon, It was official Sunday night. I saw the press releases and I was like, I really can't read the fine print on this to figure out what Sherry won or lost, you know?
I mean, I think she won the sale of her company and the shareholders won a certain price.
Sure, that's great.
That they wanted. And David Ellison won rights to what is being called New Paramount. Do you think that it will like officially be known as New Paramount? Because that was the verbiage that was being used in the press all day yesterday.
The branding's not good. You know, historically, there's a new Coke appearance in MaXXXine.
That's right. Good point.
That
didn't last.
That didn't last.
New Paramount seems weird.
Yeah. Isn't the whole point and value of Paramount that it's really old, you know, and they've got that great lot and it, you know, takes you back to the glory days?
Well put. Hopefully David Ellison will take us back to the glory days. Do you think he will?
I mean, I'm looking forward to watching.
I think this is good. Just from a purely movie enjoyer perspective.
Okay.
I think this is good. This is, of course, the company that brings us the Mission Impossible movies, Skydance.
When we did our Make a Studio, I asked to be David Ellison, essentially. Like financially, decision-making wise, you want to be the guy in charge with a blank checkbook.
Right. But also an inheritor of great wealth.
Yeah.
Not feeling as though you've earned it.
Right.
And so now you must build.
Sure.
You don't care about that part.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's like he answers to himself, you know, and doesn't totally seem to care if he loses some money, but also has enough instinct to make some trash that does make some money, which is kind of what you got to be doing.
I mean, this is a huge portfolio, though.
Yeah.
It's CBS. It's all these streaming properties.
I don't really care about CBS, respectfully.
I'm not asking you to care. That's not a part of this podcast.
I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Right.
When was the last time you watched CBS? Not for golf.
Gosh.
Because I did notice.
I mean, I watched the NFL.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, again, my husband turned on CBS on the plane yesterday to watch some golf. But then this is why we're married. Let me give you Zach's plane viewing itinerary. Number 1, The Beekeeper. And then, and then about an hour left on the flight, I see the finger like waving over the screen, trying to decide what to do. My guy goes straight to Moneyball. That's it. That's true love.
But was that inspired by the F1 viewing? Because
he didn't tell me. Like, I was watching Axel Foley.
But the F1 trailer is really weird because it opens with a moment between Brad Pitt and Carrie Condon that is basically just a Billy Bean scene where he's explaining something he needs to a person who can give it to him.
It's like a Billy Bean scene, but with like the bite taken out for a Top Gun Maverick audience.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's great. But I felt really close to Zach in that moment.
Moneyball, wonderful film.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. Shall we talk about MaXXXine?
Yes.
I'm fascinated to have this conversation with you. It's very rare that something this weird genre, hard genre, Sean genre.
Yeah.
You come along for the full ride, but you have come along for the full ride.
I sure have.
You've watched now all 3 films in this trilogy.
And in fact, I saw MaXXXine in a sneak preview setting in Los Angeles where Mia Goth herself showed up and led the crowd in I will not accept a life that I do not deserve.
And how did that make you feel?
Well, that was fine. A huge fan of Mia Goth.
Yeah.
Number 1 East Side parent for me personally.
She is. We've been known to spot her out and about in the city.
What made me less comfortable was she was great and wonderful. And then the film started, and then there were a lot of men who were older than me. We'll just leave it at that. Who
catcalling her?
No, frantically, like the film started, and they were frantically climbing over each other, running out of the theater. Some of them, I am sorry to say, Sean Fennessy, clutching Blu-rays and going out to accost Mia Goth. And I was not comfortable with that.
What Blu-rays are they holding?
I hope that it was one of the
Pearl.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It was dark because the film that we had all come to see was actually playing. But they were like basically, punching each other to get there to greet Mia Goth first.
Well, that's a fascinating entry point to the conversation about this movie and these movies because Mia Goth for the last 10 or 12 years has been a kind of interesting indie horror stalwart, you know, a kind of scream queen final girl figure who I think critics and dorks with Blu-rays are very aware of and fond of. I've been a big fan of hers for a really long time. She's in a crazy Gore Verbinski movie called A Cure for Wellness where she is just bonkers in that movie. You know, she's been in Lars von Trier movies. And so, you know, during the pandemic, she made this movie with Ty, and it clearly like elevated both of them. Ty had been making a lot of TV for the previous decade after having a lot of success in indie horror in the late 2000s and 2010s. And this kind of revived them in this fascinating way. And I wouldn't say that those first two movies were big hits per se, but they were sort of like instantaneous cult hits.
Classics, yeah.
They were really me-coded. Like they're very much movies about making movies filled with references to other movies, but also still doing a lot of really fun, particularly like crafty and comic things that I really enjoy with basically one of my favorite young movie stars. So I'm a huge fan of X. I think Pearl is like one of the most incredibly committed performances the last 10 years in movies. Whether you like that movie or not, it's a very particular flavor.
I liked it more. It's my favorite of the three.
So I thought that would be the case.
Yeah, but it's because of, as you said, these are all chock full of references. And so Pearl is doing, you know, Wizard of Oz and like old school Technicolor musicals and all of the things that, you know, my favorite types of movies. Also, it has, you know, David Cornsweeper. So I believe it's David Cornsweeper's birthday.
Is
Happy
it today?
Birthday to David Cornsweeper.
David Cornsweeper, whose real name is David Cornsweat, will be Superman.
Cornsweat.
Cornsweat, yes.
Yeah, there's an E in there.
Yeah, did I not say that?
It's fine.
Cornsweat?
Cornsweat,
Okay.
yeah.
He's also in Pearl.
Yeah.
You do
For a
like him?
little
You don't
while.
like him?
He seems good.
Okay.
You know.
He's no Mia Goth, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So X is this film set in Texas in the 1970s about a group of strippers and aspiring filmmakers who head out to a cabin to make a porno. And craziness ensues. Pearl is a 50 years earlier prequel about the old lady who turns out to be the killer in X.
Right.
And her sort of origins as a maniac in 1918 in Texas. And, you know, World War I transpiring and the Spanish flu and all these things that are happening in society. And also, you know, both of those movies are about a young woman with an incredible ambition to escape the life that they feel, you know, prescribed to, you know, have an ambitious journey to stardom. His third film is a continuation of X. And I find it to be like a very weird follow-up for a few reasons. Because Pearl, I think, if Pearl hadn't happened, I don't know that X would have become as big of a cult classic as it did.
Okay.
People really liked it as a traditional horror movie. Pearl felt like Ty West going outside of the normal genre realm into something much crazier. Like that final shot in Pearl, where she's just holding the smile through the credits, is a big,
great.
bold, weird
it's
stroke.
So good. Yeah.
It's a very odd movie that is kind of energizing in an interesting way. MaXXXine takes us back to like pure hard genre. And I feel like this pure hard genre, for the most part, is not one that maybe like you either don't like or maybe not even that familiar with. So I'm curious to see how you felt about
but
this.
I've seen Body Double.
Right. So you've seen the De Palma movies, for sure.
Yes, exactly. And there are like a lot of direct references.
Yes.
And there's something else where I was like, oh, okay. You know, a lot of it is just kind of sleazy 80s core, which I am very familiar with, if not the particular, you know, video store slasher movie that you're into, then like, you know, I know about New Coke, I know about Jazzercise,
right.
I know about Princess Diana, who Elizabeth Debicki is inexplicably just playing again. She has the full accent.
Was that the same mode?
Yes, she's
interesting.
just like still doing Diana talk.
Huh. Okay.
And also wearing riding boots.
Having not watched that, I didn't realize, but we can talk about her
yeah,
character in the movie.
Yeah. So I understand the.
So you didn't feel unmoored in this environment?
No,
okay.
I mean I've seen Pretty Woman like 1,000 times.
That's true.
Also, you know, and
I guess I wouldn't have thought of that, but that does.
Of course,
that is a comp for sure. MaXXXine is set in the 1980s.
And I've seen Bill recreate hardcore. So
now hardcore is really is a huge reference for this movie. It's like I said, set in the 80s in LA. MaXXXine has moved to Los Angeles. She's escaped the Texas porn star massacre. She's now a porn star in LA. She's attempting to break big in Hollywood. The movie opens with, I think, one of the best scenes in the film, which is her audition for Part.
Incredible.
Which is like a classic Mia Goth showcase for her attitude, for MaXXXine, what she represents. Then the movie does an interesting thing where like it was pretty clear what the reference points were for X, and they were fairly limited in scope. This movie is a big stew of a lot of different kinds of things.
One more movie that I've seen.
What's that?
Psycho.
Psycho is a big part. It's a big part of the stew, an overtly referenced part of the stew. There are sequences in which, it's funny, next week, Longlegs comes out. It's directed by Oz Perkins, who is Anthony Perkins' son. I'm like, it must be weird for Oz Perkins to have a movie coming out 1 week after a movie that is like so clearly about his own dad's legacy. Anyway, something is in the water right now with these kinds of movies. MaXXXine, I'll just say, I thought it was my least favorite of the three. I did think it was successful because I feel like Ty West has an interesting ability to just like show me something that I like and then do the opposite of what that thing is and not just recreate it whole cloth. But honestly, as I watched it a second time, I thought about you a lot because I was like, I know I'm going to talk with Amanda about it. And this is a deeply referential movie that has like winking and Easter eggs and flashpoints. And it is also like obviously a very straight down the middle woman trying to get what she wants in Hollywood kind of a movie. So it's not like illegible or anything, but I find it, for my weird, sad brain, I'm like, is this really that much fun if you don't know what he's talking about or what he's referencing here? So that was the big thing I wanted to ask you about.
It was okay. Mm-hmm. You know, parts of it were fun. I enjoy Mia Goth. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the pastiche I do recognize and I don't mind. Mm-hmm. Typically, Amanda, okay with pastiche if it's done well.
You're comfortable with it.
Yeah. I mean, did I laugh when Elizabeth Debicki has to be like, this is where Psycho was filmed? Yeah, and I was like, I know, ma'am, the Bates Motel sign is the entire size of the screen. Yeah. So even there, I was like, well, is this movie anxious about the fact that I can't be involved? And so it's trying to do this dumb stuff. And I kind of wish it wouldn't. I thought, what I resisted ultimately wasn't even like the gross out stuff was fine. Mm-hmm.
He's really good at gross out stuff.
He's good, but it's also quick and sort of funny. Like
there's
shout out
an alleyway
to the
sequence that is a great sequence in the movie. Yeah.
Thinking a lot about those. And
how did you feel like the Kevin Bacon car sequence?
Oh yeah, that was gross too. And Kevin Bacon seemed to be having fun.
He did. He's played John Labatt, a Bayou detective who finds his way to Los Angeles, as you do.
Just the thickest accent possible. So for me, the limitation was sort of the young girl, the girl trying to be a star thing, which is a storyline I like. I didn't really like the resolution, and I didn't like I wasn't invested in the third act. Like I understand that pool scene was doing some references to a bunch of movies that you've seen before, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. Like I was just like, I don't care. I was kind of hoping it would be Elizabeth Debicki, to be quite honest.
I've seen that theory proffered that people were hoping that Elizabeth Debicki would be the killer.
And that would have been like a mirroring of what was interesting about X, which was MaXXXine and Pearl, both played by Mia Goth, but at least
two generations of women,
like the little the all about Eve of it all, sort of. So, and I was also just like, well, what else is Elizabeth Debicki doing here? I just like her, but
it's kind of a fascinating movie of very familiar faces who don't get a ton to do. Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan play police officers,
right?
Obviously, Kevin Bacon is here, choosing the scenery pretty hard. Giancarlo Esposito chooses the scenery pretty hard. There's something fascinating to me about somebody like Ty West getting all of these fairly bold-faced names to come on board for this genre exercise that caps off a trilogy about like sadness and ambition in one person's tiny life. I generally agree. Like I think the third act is like a little bit off, and I'm not totally sure why it's off because I think the first two acts are really good. One thing that I think is kind of difficult to pull off here is it's set in the milieu of the Night Stalker in LA in the 80s. So when there was a serial killer who was roaming the streets and killing women. And so invariably, like, there's a replication of those kinds of kills, and that, like, mutes the female characters. And part of why Pearl and X are so special is because Mia Goth really gets something to do. She is the star of the movie. And I feel like she kind of receded as the star and didn't really have enough to do in the third act. So I kind of feel similarly to you, where, like, I feel like it lost a little bit of steam, and I was hoping it was going to be something bigger and deeper. Also, the first two movies felt kind of like a fever dream, and I think I wanted this one to just feel like more coked out and crazy, and it never quite gets to that mania that you want it to go to. But it's a very fun movie. There is also like an aspect of like The Player, and you mentioned All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard and Boogie Nights, and all of these movies about people like trying to climb, that I think it replicates pretty well. It's another movie too where he may not make another one of these, I'm not sure, but I kind of wanted to see the next step in MaXXXine's saga more so than the step that we actually saw. Weirdly, where I was like, I want to see her actually try to make the Tracy Lords jump from porn star to movie star, and can this really happen?
Yes. I mean, I agree.
We don't really get that.
We don't get that. So you're okay with, I mean, I agree. It's enjoyable. I saw a lot of bedwetters online.
Yeah.
Who I associated with the same people who caused a fire hazard to try to get to Mia Goth. So
Meaning people who were bummed out about it?
Yeah.
I think it's considered a disappointment. It wasn't a disappointment to me.
Yeah.
I think I understood exactly what he was trying to do, and because I understood what he was trying to do, I thought it ultimately worked. I think there is a kind of kind of cheapness and absurdity in movies like Vice Squad and Angel, like these 80s LA sleazy movies that he's so overtly referencing. When you if you sat down and fired up Tubi and you were like, I'm going to watch Angel today, you'd be like, this kind of sucks. You have to watch it under the right circumstances where you're really invested in these kinds of stories. You're not bothered by the, aged politics, you're along for the ride. And unless you get along for the ride for this kind of a movie. And so that's why I've been kind of turning my head around on it, where I'm like, if you don't like Tenebrae, or you don't like hardcore and Fade to Black, or you don't even like All About Eve, what is this movie for? And then that got me thinking about Quentin Tarantino. And maybe the difference between if you're Ty West and Quentin Tarantino is Quentin Tarantino does the same thing. Every one of his movies is like, here's a thing from a movie I remembered. There was one recently I was watching I was watching a Charles Bronson movie, and there was a line in the movie, and it was so clearly pulled into Death Proof.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Quentin, I was like, did you borrow this from this movie? And he wrote back right away, I didn't borrow it, I stole it. And I never would have known because I hadn't seen that Charles Bronson movie. Telephone was the name of the Charles Bronson movie, Don Siegel movie. And I never would have picked up on that. But it feels a little bit more effortless when someone like Tarantino is doing it. And with Ty, I feel like he's pointing a big flashing red sign at it. And so maybe it's just that he's my age and Quentin is older and his reference points are older.
Yeah.
And so they're a little bit further out of reach for me. And so it feels more like a discovery as opposed to something I can hold close to myself.
I mean, that tracks because the references that I had a general, but not literal understanding of, I was totally fine with. And then this is where Psycho was filmed. I was like, come on, I get it. And so if you can place every single source, it's maybe slightly less magical.
Does a movie like this, considering it's not your preferred genre, make you want to go find some of the movies that he's pointing to? Because the way Tarantino movies were gateways for me, movies like this could be gateways for people who are 18, 25 that don't know about Vice Squad or whatever. If
you don't know the De Palma movies, if you don't know, I'm more drawn towards the Hollywood stuff. So Sunset Boulevard, All About Eve. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do know those. So I don't know that I need to go watch.
You're not going to watch
Angel
B movies.
I'm not going to fire up Tubi. But for this.
Do you like a B movie with AI ideas, as Elizabeth Debicki's character says?
Again, I mean, it just depends on the genre, right? If it's a B
you like
rom-com,
2 Weeks Notice.
I like 2 weeks. Excuse me. You still have not seen 2 Weeks Notice.
I haven't seen it.
Like a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
B.
Does that have AI ideas?
Well, it's also about making movies.
Sure.
And people who want to, but see the way you're sure. You're I mean,
it's no Angel.
It's is this about making movies? Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay.
It's
That's
just, I have a different interest set.
You're being very generous.
This was fine. I didn't have a bad time.
Yeah. I think
sometimes it's just about how you choose to spend your time. And the movie industry is made up of guys like you. So they make a lot of movies.
What do you mean? Final question for you.
Yeah.
Did you think when she was testifying before Congress that Tipper Gore was right about censorship and music and our culture at that time? Was she onto something?
Is Tipper in this? Is she in the montage?
She is in the montage at the beginning.
Okay.
Will you let Knox listen to Twisted Sister and the demonic messages that Dee Snider was lacing throughout those tunes? Like, we're not gonna take it.
Absolutely.
Okay. He's got kind of a Twisted Sister energy.
Yeah.
He could drum for Twisted Sister.
He really went for it on 4th of July.
What does that mean?
You were there at the party. I mean, here's what happened. Chris Ryan gave him a sugar cookie 15 minutes before bedtime. And then Twisted Sister appeared. It was incredible.
He was going for it. He was very, very adorably going for it. Okay, that's MaXXXine. Any closing thoughts?
I hope that everyone is happy or makes peace.
I mean, the bedwetters, who cares about that? I'm not worried about that. Okay, let's go to our conversation with Van Lathan about Axel F. Van Lathan is here on the big picture. Van, what's up?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good. You're here because there's a 4th Beverly Hills Cop movie. You know, this is kind of the third to me. We don't really acknowledge Beverly Hills Cop 3 in this house.
One of those interesting movies to where, like, what the fuck happened?
It's a weird one.
That's a weird one. They went PG-13 with the movie. The movie had a weird
I have no
veneer
recollection
to it.
Didn't have the score. Didn't have that Axel F score that we're talking about.
It's a weird one right there.
It's a tough one. This new one, this is the first Beverly Hills Cop movie in 30 years.
Sure is.
It's directed by Mark Malloy. And of course, Eddie's back. You're a huge Beverly Hills Cop guy. You love Beverly Hills Cop too, right?
Yeah, of course.
So this is a Netflix movie. I thought it was going to make a little bit more noise over the weekend than it actually did, but maybe it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, because to me, it felt like a very uncomplicated return to a comfortable place. What did you think of the movie?
I liked it. I think, you know what I compare the movie to? Big Three basketball. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for those of us?
So the Big Three is a league that Ice Cube started.
Okay.
That is a 3-on-3 league. Okay. And it is populated and by mostly ex-NBA guys. These are guys in their early 40s, sometimes in their late 40s. Like Joe Johnson plays in the league. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf played in the league. Stephen Jackson played in the league. These are guys that are still way better than the basketball players that you would turn on and see in different situations. They played years and years in the league, most of them. Some newcomers. And they're playing a 3-on-3 game half court. And if you let yourself enjoy it, it's enjoyable. If you let yourself enjoy Joe Johnson still cooking at his age, doing his thing, it's enjoyable. If you compare it to Joe Johnson for the Hawks or the Nets, you're probably not going to have as much fun with it as you should.
I'm slightly offended by the original Beverly Hills Cop as Joe Johnson on the Nets. That's not totally accurate, but close enough.
Joe Johnson on the Hawks.
Fun. Yeah. Big Three, co-owned by Ice Cube, made some noise earlier this year because they tried to get Caitlin Clark to participate. They offered to pay her more than the WNBA would be willing to pay her to play.
That's not hard, but anyway.
That's true. I think that's an interesting metaphor.
Yeah.
What did you think of Axel F?
So I watched this on a plane flying home from Detroit, where I was this weekend for a wedding. Congratulations to Daniel and Jean. And to Los Angeles. And like I said, I was like at the end of a wedding weekend, and I was on a plane, and I had a lovely time. I also do feel that the points it makes about what it means to be a parent and what it means to be a child are important lessons for everyone in our society. I don't know if I needed them in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, but I liked it when they used the snowplow.
What would you say were the lessons?
Well, there are at least like 4, therapy conversations in a car between Eddie Murphy and his daughter, who's introduced into the franchise, played by Taylor Page. And at one point, she's like, you're supposed to be the parent and I'm supposed to be the child. And the parent's always responsible. So honestly, that's true. That's good. Again, did I need that in the middle of like trying to bring down the cartel? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tricky thing about making a movie 30 years later. Like, you couldn't just have Axel Foley still be a street cop at 59 years old, just running cases. That would have been a little bit weird. In fact, like the ages of all of the, I mean, everyone has returned here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, like Judge Reinhold is back, John Ashton is back in this movie, Paul Reiser is back, Bronson Pinchot is back. All of these guys should like be in Boca or something. You know what I mean? They should not be like actively working the beat in Beverly Hills or in Detroit. So you have to like stretch the believability of it somewhat. Especially, you know, a lot of cops, they retire early.
Yeah.
I have some accidents, you know, they put 20 years in and then they're done.
Right.
So it's a lot of guys in their late 40s or early 50s are out. These guys are still grinding. So it you know, it strains some credulity. We do have Joseph Gordon-Levitt here. It's a very weird career, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, playing the fifth lead in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F.
As I'm watching it, I'm like, you know, for a time in the late 2000s, we call them the aughts and the early, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt was flirting with being the guy. He was in big movie after big movie. He was sought after, lusted after.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost there.
Did you lust after Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
I did not.
Okay.
But I know what Van was talking about. There was like, you know, indie sleaze and then indie twee.
Yeah.
He was manic in that and
Pixie
he was,
Dream Boy. Yeah.
Yes. In a manic pixie dream.
But also
movie.
a frequent Nolan collaborator and the whole thing.
I just saw you just tweeted the like, did we want this movie question about the Robin movie that could have happened after The Dark Knight Rises.
Right.
Which, you know,
right.
Do you know why I tweeted that?
Why?
I tweeted that because I watched Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, and I went, yo, man, what the fuck happened to Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Like it was a big deal. He was right there, and I was like, yo, like at the end of that movie, he inherited the Batcave. Did we want to see that movie? I almost thought at some point they would fuck around with it, play around with it, but they never did. And he shows up here. He plays his part very well.
Yeah.
Listen, this is what I thought about the movie. I thought one of the things about the movie was literally trying to show that this entire world can age like wine. Serge comes back and he actually occupies a space in this movie that is believable.
Mm-hmm.
That Beverly Hills real estate guy is real.
Oh, yeah.
Like that guy is real. So when he comes back, it feels familiar, but the question about this movie to me was whether or not you were going to buy it, whether or not you were going to buy Axel in Beverly Hills again. That's why you need the daughter, because it wouldn't make any sense to come back without it. Whether or not you were going to buy Taggart and Rosewood and everyone's still kicking around. The movie was funny enough. It had great action. An action movie set in Beverly Hills just works.
Yeah.
The movie did enough for me to be like, I was delighted by it and I had a good time with it and I laughed a lot.
It at least was what the first two films are, which was a Simpson and Bruckheimer movie. Mm-hmm. You know, like the stakes seem really high, but you know they're actually low. A lot of comic sensibility inside of big action set pieces. You don't really remember too much of the plot 20 minutes after you've seen the movie, but it doesn't really matter that much. I'm glad you brought up Serge. I thought the best part of the movie was Nassim Pedrad, who showed up for like 10 minutes. And I was like, that is a real person.
Yes.
Like that is like a parody of the Selling Sunset person. Mm-hmm. But she was really, really funny. I thought particularly about how rude she was about her child.
Mm-hmm.
But I could have used like a little bit more of that in the movie, I think, because Rosewood, Taggart, like those guys didn't actually get to be as funny. Their role was mostly just to be like, hey, remember these original movies? Remember these characters? They don't have a lot of laugh lines. And Eddie, he didn't like totally let himself out of the cage, you know? Like he didn't go like full Eddie. And he hasn't really gone full Eddie in a long time. But you'd think if he was playing Axel, when he would show it to you, he would give you a glimpse in this movie. And I'd be like, what happened to that guy? I missed that guy so much.
It was always like interstitial patter. But I do feel, you know, to Van's point, you need the daughter for the plot purposes of getting him back to Beverly Hills. But also it does feel like the father-daughter plot line was really inserted to keep him on what he thinks is safe ground. Right. So he's like, no, I'm spending more time trying to be worried about my daughter than having to do my bits that, to Van's point, he doesn't do that much anymore.
Yeah.
So I watched an interview with Eddie where he talks about why he doesn't laugh the way he laughs anymore. And I noticed in the movie that laugh is gone.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it anymore. And it was very eye-opening because he's a different Eddie Murphy now on purpose. And the question would be whether or not he could be that guy as Axel Foley and whether he just got over the line. When I say he just got over the line, I mean there's little parts in the car. Like I laughed at little stuff that made me remember Eddie Murphy. They're driving and he goes, shouldn't be calling black people monkeys, you get fucked up. Like that is the kind of line that delivered in 1985 was just hilarious. And I laughed. I laughed big time. He just got there. And it works in this movie because you think of an Axel Foley that is a little bit less virile, that's aged, that doesn't quite have the energy which they talk about when he's at the hotel. He's like, I'm too tired to do the whole thing and scam his way into the room, so he just pays the $900 a night, which is actually a bargain if he's at the Windsor.
I know, but so it was a resort view, and I was like, that means garden view, right? So it's actually the lease room, but I also tripped on that.
Right. So
$950.
I think he just got there, but part of this movie for me was actually realizing that I do have to say goodbye to that Eddie Murphy because that guy's gone.
Yeah.
So you were on the show a few years ago. We talked about Coming to America too. Coming to America. Yeah. And very similar situation. Movie made around roughly the same time, an iconic part. This is what a lot of actors his age are doing. They're returning to these Lego sequels. I did like that this one didn't, it featured a lot of the characters, but it didn't seem to be like trying to create IP connective tissue across the generations too much. You know, this wasn't like the Scream movie exactly, but there is something a little sad about like I'm 60 and I'm doing something that I did 40 years ago because the paycheck is just that good, but also I'm not going to give you who I was then. Like it's a bit of a complicated gambit. I don't know if that's because he doesn't want to be laughed at in that way, or he feels like he needs to show a kind of maturation as a celebrity, as a performer, as an icon of Hollywood. But it felt a little muted ultimately for me.
It felt really long to me. That was the other thing. And maybe without the propulsive Eddie Murphy energy. And also it does a good job of honoring the first two and recreating the setup, and you know how it's going to go, but you also like really know how it's going to go. And so the plot stuff, I was like, oh, we're still doing this, and there isn't like enough energy to keep me interested in yet another conversation about what Kevin Bacon is up to, when it's very clear what Kevin Bacon is up to from the
they telegraphed that pretty deeply.
Like it was like, so that's why Kevin Bacon is the movie. And listen,
why was it Kevin Bacon villain weekend at the movies?
Huge Kevin Bacon fan. So I'm happy with it. And he seems to be having fun. Both on, did you read the interview or read the quotes of the interview where he's like, I had prosthetics made to wander out and find out what it's like to not be a famous person.
He didn't like it.
And it sucked. Yeah, he was like, I had to wait for coffee.
He said he had to wait for coffee.
Yeah, no one said hi to me. He was like, this really sucks. I want to go. Which, I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, I love that.
It seems right, Kevin Bacon.
And by the way, only somebody with his type of cachet could get away with that. We like him. So
he also has the perfect level of fame, right?
Perfect level of fame.
He's never going to have to wait in line for coffee.
Right.
But people will probably just let him have dinner interrupted.
Yeah, but he's not going to take over the Starbucks like Brad Pitt or somebody would.
I can't get over that story. Wait, why did he do that?
I have to be honest, I didn't read the full interview.
That's
it was just like
behavior.
I just did the aggregator.
I watched it. I didn't watch it. I read it and I was like, this is why I fuck with him.
Yeah.
He was like,
so funny.
He's like, nobody went, your table is right here, Mr. It's a better life. He didn't like it. He didn't.
Of course. And he's been famous for 45 years.
Yeah,
for a really long
Yes.
time. And his works every year, all the time, probably incredibly wealthy. Seems happy. I agree. He's that mid-tier celebrity that everybody likes.
But he's not Ben Affleck where they're following him to Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
You know? It's just like, oh, it's Kevin Bacon. I mean, he worked on one of the lots that he was at Sunset Gower for a time. And I'd just be like, oh, it's Kevin Bacon.
Right.
But I wouldn't say
no need
hi
to bother him. Yeah,
he was just doing his stuff.
Interesting.
So, the thing about the movie to me, like, okay, Coming to America was just not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
The second one, yeah.
It wasn't funny.
Yeah.
It felt smaller and less important than the other one. They were able to make this movie still feel like a Beverly Hills Cop movie, and obviously the soundtrack, stuff like that, it matters. I think that there's something interesting. We talked a little bit about this before. Maybe I talked about it on a different podcast. These stars, are different. Like I never saw Clint Eastwood play the hits when he got to a certain age and go back and give us more Dirty Harry or Philo Beto. I love those movies. Or like any of that stuff.
He would do a movie like 10 or 15 years later. We're not 40
not
years
40
later.
years
Right.
later.
Yeah.
Not 40 years later. And so I think Cruise and Eddie Murphy and the rest of these people that are diving back into these roles, we've had a longer relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they became stars when they were in their 20s, and they've maintained this level of stardom for like such a long time that as we continue to see them, we wonder, where's Axel Foley? We wonder, where's Maverick? And they can sell that nostalgia back to us. I really kind of feel like they might be the first generation of movie stars who can do that. And also, there's not quite the guys coming behind them that they can hand the baton off to.
Right.
There's a way to do this Beverly Hills Cop movie, which they tried to do a television show, Beverly Hills Cop, not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to do this
They
movie.
did it, right? They did a season, right?
Yeah. There's a way to do this movie where you find the young, hot, up-and-coming comedy star, and he's with you in the movie, and he kind of takes the reins a little bit. It just didn't work. They tried it with Shia LaBeouf in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Right.
We'd rather see Harrison Ford than
Then they tried it again with Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah,
and
it's
Harrison
like-
Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Die Hard did the same thing. They were like, here's John McClane's son.
Here's John McClane. It's like we want the guys. We haven't, that next group of people hasn't really made themselves important enough for us to feel like they can take these types of roles over.
Arnold
honestly.
is still coming back for Terminator movies, like that's that, and he probably will come back for another one in 5 years.
That one is an interesting one. They keep updating the story, but they keep going back to the T-800. No matter what they do, Terminator the only one that didn't do it was Salvation. They actually did have him
The
in
Christian
there.
Bale one.
The Christian Bale one, but
Yeah.
like they didn't have Arnold in there, but they had the T-800 in there. So I'm just saying.
How's your full Terminator series rewatch going?
I was thinking through it. So the T-1000 is T2, the scary guy, right?
That's Robert Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Liquid
How
Metal.
far up do the numbers go?
T3.
I
Wow.
genuinely don't know the answer.
Look,
Okay.
she was Christina Loking. She was
Christina Logan. Yeah.
Loki.
yeah.
She was a T-3300 or something.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Wow,
She
you're
was
really
something-
early up on this.
So
This
are they
Oh, I
doing
used to
it?
love that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought
might
Dark
be
Fate
wrong
was
about
pretty
that.
good, I'll be honest. I kind of enjoyed it, the most recent Terminator movie. I was like, I would watch another one of these tomorrow.
Which one was Dark Fate?
That was the one with Mackenzie Davis.
And Sarah Connor came back.
Sarah Connor came back.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And Arnold was in it.
But we've
Yeah.
like reached Skynet years IRL, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have we?
Yeah.
Was it 2025? It might have been 2025.
Wow.
Skynet. Okay. When does Skynet take
Terminator
over?
pod
When
next
does
year.
Skynet
Big anniversary.
It might be
take
2025.
over?
No, well, the war is in 97.
Yeah, Skynet begins to learn rapidly and eventually becomes self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Times on August 29th, 1997. That's pulling from Wikipedia.
That's Judgment
and
Day.
not AI.
So what that right there is Judgment Day.
Should I be looking at Terminator Wiki? Okay.
I hope you do.
Yeah.
Wow, this is really confusing. That doesn't help me at all.
Judgment Day is 97. What you're looking for is the date that John Connor
He
sends
defeats
the-
Skynet in 2029, according to Time
Okay.
magazine.
Wow. Spoiler alert for those of you who have not kept up with the 6 Terminator films.
Yeah.
RIP to John Landau, by the way. A
Yeah.
longtime
Oh,
producer.
yeah,
yeah.
Avatar and many other James Cameron projects.
But I guess I say all this, Conan the Barbarian. I feel isn't there a Conan movie coming out with Arnold Schwarzenegger pretty soon?
Is there?
No, did I just make that up in my
Wow.
mind?
It's possible.
But I'm just saying, like all of these guys, they're kind of still around,
Mm-hmm.
and for some of them, not so much Tom Cruise or some of the other guys. For some of them, we're kind of less interested in the next thing that they're gonna do
That's
than,
right.
than the
And
stuff that they've done
nostalgia. No,
before.
that's true.
It's very true. Eddie is 63 years old.
Mhm.
This was solid. It was a solid streaming movie. I think I might have liked it if I saw it more in a movie theater.
What they should have released it to theaters because like some of the action set pieces,
Yeah.
like the helicopter joint,
Really fun.
that works
Really
better
good.
in a movie theater.
Yeah.
And this weekend, with all the movies that came out, this would have been a perfect movie for the 14 and
Right.
up set that
Mhm.
we didn't
Yes.
really have in the movie theater. Anyway, Van Lathan, thank you so much for coming by.
No problem. Look, I'll tell you guys this. Before I go, I want to say something.
Okay.
What's a legacy sequel that you would want to see?
Oh.
Is there a legacy sequel out there right now?
For Amanda, it's Virgin Suicides. You know, what happened the next day?
That's so great.
It's so fucking dark. What's a
No,
legacy
it's a-
sequel that you would want to see?
So, how far back do we have to go for legacy?
This is an easy one for me.
Okay.
It's A Few Good Men. I
was
want more
just
Caffey.
thinking about that, but I don't think you want Aaron Sorkin writing Caffey right now. I mean, maybe like you do, but in a very dark way.
I think
you
I do.
didn't even let Molly's Game into Kevin Costner Hall of Fame,
That's true,
so I
but
don't
loved
think
the
that you're
newsroom.
ready.
So imagine, Caffey running for governor of Michigan. Come on.
I want more Oceans movies.
More Oceans
and
movies.
they're basically like having them and making them this summer, you know, like Matt Damon and Casey Affleck are doing one, and then George and Brad have one. Just make more Oceans movies. Call Steven. He loves to work. Just keep doing it.
What's your pick?
War Games.
Oh, interesting. That's Broderick.
Yeah.
You're bringing Broderick back. Broderick, 65-year-old Matthew Broderick.
Yep. War Games. It could be really great now. War Games and Harlem Nights. Just keep Eddie. Have
Harlem
Eddie
Nights.
come back to it. Have Eddie come back to it.
I don't think that IP is as strong as Beverly Hills Cop.
It's definitely not. But War Games, to me, you could bring the war. This is perfect for a streamer. You bring the War Games cast back. You do the whole thing. Okay. Now we got the internet.
Yeah.
And different types of way for governments to wage war.
Okay.
But now Matthew Broderick's character, because you know he's gone into it. He's working deep in the government, and there's a new young kid that now has to go get him. He's the old. You remember the older guy that had named Joshua thing?
Yeah.
It's right there for him. They won't do it.
One problem: we just lost Dabney Coleman just this year.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Dab. Did we recognize Dabney Coleman's death on this show? Okay. Well, I'm happy to do it right now.
What's your favorite Dabney Coleman?
Cloak and Dagger. I only just saw it for the first time recently.
You ever see Dabney Coleman in this movie where he thought he had 24 hours to live, so he was going crazy?
Oh, what is that?
I can't remember the name
you
of it.
You always say movies that I saw when I was 9. Like you had the same exact viewing experience as kids.
I can't remember the name of the movie.
Yeah. 9 to 5, he's funny in that.
I think the movie was Short Time or something like 9 to 5, he's funny in that. He's just a guy that, once again, it's hard for me to put it in words. Just when the guy showed up, you knew it was going to be funny.
How did Dabney Coleman get famous? Hollywood, we used to be different. We used to just let in weird, slightly balding guys with mustaches and just let them be the stars of films.
And let them be funny assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Word. Yeah, we don't have that anymore. Anyway, Van Lathan, thank you so much for coming through.
Peace, guys.
Okay, we're back quickly. Despicable Me 4. So you haven't seen it. I'm not going to spoil it for you.
Don't tell me anything.
I won't tell you anything.
And also, I have seen Despicable Me.
Okay.
And I have seen...
You've seen Minions, The Rise of Gru.
I've seen Minions, The Rise of Gru, and I have seen Minions, but not with sound.
Okay.
Which, frankly, is one of the, I think, brilliant aspect of the Minions franchise is that it could be a silent film. You get a lot of it. You get the Minions comedy anyway.
Yeah, the Minions movies can work that way.
Yes.
The Despicable Me movies, I don't think
So
can work
I have
that way.
seen Despicable Me
Okay.
many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to revisit it or anything else, and I'm just going to go into Despicable Me 4.
I think you'll be fine.
Solo.
I think you'll be fine.
And then we can attempt to discuss what happened.
This is yeah, it's not like starting, the Decalogue and then, coming back to it 5 years later. I'm going to hold two ideas in my mind at the same time without spoiling the movie for you, okay?
What a marvel you are.
Thank you.
As a man and a podcaster.
I didn't dislike the movie.
Yeah.
But when I walked out of the Americana at 10 p.m. last night after viewing it by myself,
oh my God.
I had a very distinct feeling wash over me. And that feeling is very simply stated as life is meaningless.
Do you think it has anything to do with you showing up to the mall at 8:30 on the Sunday of a holiday weekend?
Yeah, had to do bedtime,
to see a children's movie by yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what I'm willing to put on the line every week for this show. Like, I can't be stopped. Like, I will go to the ends of the earth.
Listen, I'm going
to see Despicable Me 4.
It is a little bit, as Kamala Harris taught us, context matters,
She taught us that?
Well, something, there was something
I wish someone would teach
in
her
the
that.
coconut.
Yeah.
No, it's, I get what you're saying, but
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that life is meaningless.
Maybe we should strategize a little bit more about how you execute this great project that you're doing. And maybe it doesn't
What do you mean?
Maybe after a lovely long weekend with your family.
I did have a lovely long weekend with my family. Yeah.
And you sent me pictures. I don't know if we cap that off with the Americana at 8:30 on a Sunday night.
But what else am I going to do?
Like, relax?
No.
Read a book? When's the last time you read a book?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Okay.
I have the books that I'm like constantly returning to, but they're all nonfiction. The idea of like sitting down with a work of fiction, it's been a long time.
Okay.
But I have Gru.
Okay.
You know, he's my great protagonist.
Do you relate to Gru?
Increasingly in this film.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I know.
I would say
he's a dad.
He's a father.
I
of
read
daughters.
that they don't age.
Who doesn't age?
The Gru and the kids, they will not be aging anymore. And the Minions universe,
like those high school girls.
will be fixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just a movie reference.
Okay. All right.
It's just a reference to a character named
Great.
Wooderson.
Good job. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I feel that I live with a Minion energy inside me, but also with the young man that
You
I'm
think he
raising.
gets it from you?
Don't you?
I don't know. And I wouldn't be so bold as to make a proclamation. So at the live show,
Yes.
you're going to recap the plot of Despicable Me 4?
I'm going to try to explain what happens in Despicable Me 4. So anyone,
As you said that, the eBay prices are skyrocketing.
Well,
people are like, is this really going to
here's what I'm
happen?
going to say right now. If you have tickets to the live show and you don't want Despicable Me 4 spoiled for you,
Mhm.
I think you've got like 12 hours, from when this posts to when the live show starts. So where are your priorities?
You're very talented. It's incredible being around you. The movie made $230 million worldwide over the weekend.
Yeah.
The box office is now down just 17% this year after
Mhm.
being down as much as 40% a few
Mhm.
weeks ago. Inside Out 2 has made $1.3 billion.
Mhm.
Seems like everything's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. Make movies that children can go to.
Strong agree. I do not want my daughter to see Despicable Me 4.
Well, so that's the thing is that
like she can eventually. I
but
don't mean
like
like
the
ever.
parents don't actually want the kids to become aware of Minion energy.
Well, can I tell you about who I saw the film with?
Like, yeah. Go
I
ahead.
asked the name of every single person in the theater. No, I sat next to a family.
Oh, that's
Classic
cute.
situation where they were sitting in my seat and I rolled up
Yeah.
solo like a psychopath.
Right.
And I was like,
That's really
hey
good.
guys, you're in my seat. And like 5 people had to move over one seat. Anyway, I didn't even ask for it. I was just like, I think you might be in the wrong seat. And then they were all like, oh, okay, no problem. And they all shifted over.
Was it a full theater?
It was a packed theater. And at 8, so this is my point. At 8:30 on a
The
Sunday
baby
night of
has
a holiday
also,
weekend.
we started talking about Minions and the baby woke up. So that's like a not auspicious, just
Wow.
like rumbling around
You're
in
gonna
there.
have 2 minions.
I
You have 2 minions in your house. You're so
Okay.
fucked. I can't believe how screwed you are. It's crazy. This family of 5, 40-something dad, 40-something mom,
Okay.
16-year-old girl, 14-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy.
Sick.
And they went out to go see Despicable Me 4 together as a family on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Even though the kids in these movies don't age, like kids who grew up with this franchise are not letting go.
Yeah.
16-year-old girl sitting with her parents
Yeah.
on a Sunday to see
Gentle
Despicable Me
Minions,
4.
you know what I'm saying?
But there were nobody was in suits.
No,
There were
I
no
know, but
bits.
it's
I was
the
like, this is a
same.
family night out.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy.
Well,
I mean, I guess it's normal. And
that's also,
that's
I
where
think
my
that
life is headed.
explains Inside Out, right? That's
I think so. That 9-year
Because-
gap between movies.
right. And because so all the people who are very small are now old enough, plus also Inside Out spoke to all of us.
Right.
So you just have a broader,
Do you think that's a good idea because I will say Despicable Me 4, not for 3-year-olds,
yeah.
like at all.
Right.
Like, the main villain, I was like, this would be terrifying
Okay.
for my daughter. So are
know,
they
yeah.
are they aging them up? Like as they make them? I haven't done a complete rewatch of the entire Despicable Me
I
franchise.
think they're probably trying
To slowly age them?
Well, no, to broaden
Okay,
the audience,
okay. They didn't
so-
broaden it deep enough for me.
Well, I mean, sure.
There were no black-gloved serial killers in this film. Why not?
Right. But like you get a 6-year-old, you get your hooks in a 6-year-old,
Uh-huh.
and as a brand,
Mhm.
as evil
Not your
capitalism.
physical hooks.
Yeah,
'cause you're a hook
no
killer.
real
Like,
hooks
I know
for
what you did last
6-year-olds.
summer. Yeah.
And then you try to keep them for life. This is the Taylor Swift genius. She gets you age 7, and it just keeps going.
I had just a crazy revelation while I was thinking about Life is Meaningless related to Taylor Swift
Okay,
in the
great.
car, but I will not share it.
Can I
will
just
not
tell
share
you?
it.
So I went to a wedding this weekend in Detroit, as discussed.
Yes.
And like it was the Taylor Swift songs that truly "You Belong
broke
with
you?
Me" and no Love Story is what got like all generations.
Man.
A lot of very handsome former professional basketball players and college just like knew every word.
It's
like
official,
I was
yeah.
a bit intimidated
Yep.
when I like dropped a line during Love Story because the younger kids, they knew it all.
Between
So,
that and Sleepy Joe versus Trump and
Yeah.
everything happening in November, it's like the decline of the empire is like
Right.
it's official. Like we have Olympus has fallen.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
Gosh, Despicable Me 4, what a huge hit. I'm so happy for those guys.
I'm excited to see it.
Thank you to Van Lathan. Thanks to Ronak Nair. Thanks to Corey McConnell. Thanks to Bobby Wagner. Later this week, I'm digging into Longlegs, terrifying new serial killer thriller. I'll see you then.